Welcome to the Crab House. This is the first time we're doing this. This is your special Cancer forecast for the month of January 2025. We're very excited to initiate this new phase in the Crab House with you.
Yeah. Yes, and perfect time for our whole new phase, which is pretty much Cancer in 2025. What a friggin' year for us. And it really does start with a bang in January.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And especially that big bang, we can say, because Mars, the planet of big bangs, is in our first house, right? Retrograde in our first house. So, well, technically it's hanging out at the beginning of the second, but it's about to pop back into the first. So this whole sort of reconnecting with what we want, what we desire, with our energy, with our vitality. You know, Mars in general is about doing things, right? Getting things done and moving forward and initiating. And the first house has to do with acting on your own behalf and where you need to take the lead and where you need to really step up and be clear. I always feel like with that first house, self-advocacy has a lot to do with the first house. Now, with Mars retrograde, though, we might, some people would say, well, maybe you should step back and wait. And we can say to some extent, maybe before initiating something brand new. But if there's stuff you've been sitting on, and there's things that have already been on your heart and mind, and you've just been sort of hanging out waiting for something else to shift or change, I think this is really the time to step out and go for it.
Yeah, and that's definitely what the lunations of this month are ushering us to do as Cancers. This month is no chill, with or without a Mars retrograde. Mars retrogrades back into our signs of Cancer on January 6th, and we're speaking Pacific time here, so that could be the 7th on different days, depending on where you are in this wonderful, beautiful world. With Mars retrograde coming back into Cancer, it's almost like retrograde is associated with stalling and stopping. Yeah. Retrograde planets and transit to transit retrogrades, it changes the timeline and the perspective. It doesn't mean stall. And I think that's really critical because the Cancers have no chill in January for very specific reasons. And like with retrograde planets, they hover, especially from a harmonic astrology perspective, they hover around the same few degrees. So they hit the same notes. So this is an opportunity to do things and get things done, Cancer, that have been hovering around forever, years, months. Like this, a lot of the stuff that we're doing and that we're tackling in January is not new. These are old situations that we get to wrap up before mid-year, which we're also going to talk about in our forecast today. Why this is the year of Crab, why this is the year of Cancer, really, because once we get to June, we have Jupiter in Cancer, which we'll talk about the implications in future episodes in a little bit today.
We know that the crab likes to kind of move sideways, right? Our preferred motion oftentimes is not to hit things straight on. But this idea of moving sideways to get something or wanting something to happen and not wanting to just directly say it or go for it, but well, what if I do this, or I leave this message, or I say this thing, or I look this way, will it get a different response? I think that especially in January, this is a time to hit some things head on. And like you mentioned, that stalling or stopping that people associate with retrogrades, I think we can apply that to maybe a brand new venture or something that has just popped into your mind or just has arisen in your heart. Although I say all day long to my clients, if you know that there's something for you to do, who gives a fuck if something's retrograde? You got to follow and do you. And as a Cancer, if you're here watching this, you have good intuition. You can trust those feelings. Imagine this. We're moving along. And then all of a sudden, from our perspective, things are moving backwards. So what does that mean? Something was forgotten. Something needs to be touched on again. Something needs to be reopened. Something needs to be reconnected. So if anything, it's the opposite of stopping or stagnation. it is such an intense need to dig in and do something that we're going to cover the territory multiple times. That's how I look at it. And again, this speaks to that Mars retrograde in our sign in Cancer, right? Mars, even in Cancer, ultimately is a direct communicating type of planet, a direct motion type of planet. So yeah, I think, it feels like you got to hit it straight on when it counts.
And with astrology and stuff like that, like, I think that my personal purview of astrology is that we have all of these forces that align where we don't have to do anything. It does it for us. Like, for Jupiter is gigantic. The sun is so gigantic. Like, Earth is like this little blip in our solar system. These are like giant forces. You know, I think Earth is like, Pluto's like the smallest planet of them all, but like Earth really ain't got nothing on Saturn, Jupiter, Sun, and you know, like the physics of it. So anyway, long story short, to Tara's point, in January with the lunations, and all the other transits and stuff going on for Cancers, it's like, don't do it in a roundabout way and wrap it up. Wrapping shit up. Like, oh, hell no. That's the energy that is afforded to us that we don't need to earn. And let's talk about why. Like, the first moon on January 13th, the full moon in Cancer, that's our moon.
It's on a Monday, which is the moon's day. Right? So this is already extra fun. I asked what I was geeking out on the numerology too. So if you're in Pacific time, it's 2:27 p.m. Pacific time. And if you break that down numerologically to a single digit, it's a 2, which is the high priestess, which is the moon card in the tarot. So we're calling it our moon, but I suppose we're a little partial.
We're like, it's our moon on every single level.
But it is our moon because it's in our sign.
It's in our sign. It's
we
our
get to claim
moon.
it. Yes.
We claim the moon. And we claim the moon in all signs because we
all
are
times.
Cancers. Yeah, so it's our moon. Sorry, y'all. This is the crab house. And particularly, like, the moon on January 13th, like, the full moon includes Uranus. So when we've got sun, moon, Uranus situations going on, Uranus cannot be trapped or contained. When the luminaries are conjoined with Uranus,
like they are on the 13th of January.
Which lasts for like 2 weeks. I beg for someone or something to try to relinquish our freedom of expression. Because that's what Sun Uranus does. It needs to move when it wants to move. It needs freedom. Freedom, not just like personal freedom and kind of like stuff like that. Physical freedom. I'm out. Peace out. Don't hold me down. Like, you can't imprison me. So we have this energy going on, and it's really triggering a lot of our social points. So the groups that we're involved in, the contracts, the businesses, the alliances, the associations. Some of us Cancers this month might be like, peace out. Just gone.
Could be even your partner, right? It can be lovers, it can be friends. So it's interesting, it extends to community and then also to the more personal connections as well. And so all the way around, I think there's this element with this Uranus energy. It's interesting because it is at least from the aspect wise, it's harmonious, meaning that there is a natural flow and things that work better together. So this desire for freedom, this desire to be more authentic in who and how we are and who we show up with, this desire to not put on costumes that are phony or fake, or to try to solicit some response from someone, or to hold together like a tie with someone that is just fraying apart. I sometimes think with Uranus, like, some things are better left to fray, right? So this might be a moment where the final fray comes apart. But you had mentioned with Uranus also being the like electrical nervous system and thinking about the regulation of those things. You know, the moon has a lot to do with how we self-regulate, right? In our own rhythms and the kind of ways we move through things. So Uranus could be a little upsetting or unsettling, but also I think there's a healing energy. I mean, Uranus is in Taurus right now. And in this particular lunation, we've got Mars conjunct the moon. And so this potential to heal the body. You were talking about earlier how there are actually healers everywhere. And it's not just people there's healing energies in the elements. There's healing in different aspects of nature. There's healing in different frequencies. I've got sound bowls out in my front room, and sometimes when I sneeze loud, they activate. So that in itself can be its own little healing frequency. Colors can be healing, right? Metals can be healing. And I think with Uranus, that those sort of synchronistic connections, and especially things beyond this planet, you're talking about how Earth is small, right? I think Uranus really connects us to cosmic or connected, interconnected intelligence. So don't be surprised if things can come into your body or reach your personal local nervous system at this time. And that's tremendous possibility. If you have been wanting healing on some level, this would be opening up to receive it. Could be a great time to do it, whatever that looks like for you. Letting yourself be in the space. And maybe it's a little weird, right? It may not be how you thought you were going to get the healing. We've actually talked about this for this month in a couple different ways, about things not being what you expect.
Exactly.
So if you've got an idea of how something's supposed to look and you're really rigidly stuck to that, that's where I would suggest giving yourself some breathing room. It's hard for shit to get in when we do that. Oh, it only, relationships, for example, only look like this. This means Clarissa loves me. And when I do that, there's no room to actually see how she really loves me. So same thing with healing, same thing with awakening, same thing with liberation. We may not even know for sure what type of community relationships we're looking for until we make room for some things to kind of bust apart and see what comes back in, right? So it's like, I have a friend that calls Uranus snapping. Whatever it is, it's a snapping transit, snapping energy, right? And so it just snaps that fucker right apart. And I think that in some ways you want it. This is what do you want to snap apart? Because it's so hard holding it together, right? All this sort of energy is like band-aiding it up and wrapping it with an ace wrap or whatever, and all this stuff holding in. And it's like, that's just exhausting. So back to the pursuit of freedom, you call it. Thinking about this full moon as us Cancers, what's our pursuit of freedom? Which might even mean relooking at what the word freedom means, which I oftentimes do from time to time.
Yeah. And that's like the beauty of astrology. Again, like my humble opinion, just the physics of it. It's like most likely something at this full moon within the 2 weeks of this lunation is gonna snap. And so what that looks like too, like it looks to me like a lot of us Cancers are gonna be like, good riddance. Like that kind of, it's like, okay, you want to snap? Well, fuck off. And that is a relief, right? That kind of relief, it is a Uranus nervous system regulatory relief where something is just expunged. And to create that space that you're talking about, to be in some new frequency, it's like, okay, God. So a lot of like wrapping up, good riddance, like kind of energy. That's really what we're getting mid-month. And it's really freeing and it's beautiful.
And it might be your own bullshit. So it doesn't have to be someone else's. And I had a note because Clarissa, you said this earlier and I loved it. You said we can't sponge that bullshit anymore. And so this idea of Cancer's always soaking the shit in, you know, and holding on to the emotions and having all the memories and the feelings and trying to make everything feel okay and take care of everything. And, you know, you mentioned this empathetic force and the fierceness of this lunation, and I would say Cancer in general, is just magnified with Mars conjunct this full moon. So again, if we can't sponge that bullshit anymore, what do you have to do to expunge it, to use your word? And the first house is act on your own behalf. Act on your own behalf. Don't wait for something to change. Don't wait for something to swoop in and save it. Don't wait until it feels a little bit better. But in general, if there's a thing that you know that you've just soaked it in so deep that it's now toxifying your entire system. Purge button, which we'll talk about more with the new moon. There's even more shit coming up.
I love that purge button. And the empathetic force that Tara was referring to is the 17th harmonic that is triggered by the full moon on the 13th. 17th harmonic, and if you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. Like, you know, this is my specialty. Harmonics are aspects, blah, blah, blah. 17th harmonic is the force of empathy and the empath type of empathy, where there's no distinguishment between any body, like whether it's an animal across the room or whatever, or Terra and we're across the room, like 17th harmonic, it feels other people's and other beings' emotions and thoughts in your own body. There's no separation. And so what this moon, it's that purge button. It's like, oh, hell no, I don't want to feel this shit anymore. There's other things about this moon too, and this whole month, particularly because this also moves is a theme for the next new moon. But it really is, I think, for Cancers, doing what we really need to do. So applying to certain applications, doing your taxes, doing your books, cleaning your closet, whatever kind of obligations that have been long standing that do require some type of formal agreements, whatever that looks like, this is the month for us to log it in. And another thing that I think is interesting about this month for Cancers too is, once again, we have no chill. So we're actually very busy. We have a lot of things on our plate to actually accomplish and do. But it's also this hurry up and wait piece where it's like, okay, it really is a long game for a lot of this kind of stuff. It really isn't like overnight, even though the level of effort into the project, a lot of the work is being done in January. We're still going to be watching this unfold for many, many months to come.
And we didn't talk about this too much, but for, of course, a big part of January is Capricorn season. And that's our polarity sign. And so to think about, polarity sign can be very complementary, meaning they work very well together, but it can also feel like the complete opposite end of things. And so we were musing on this a little bit, that those of us that are strong Cancer, oftentimes when we're approaching situations, I think almost all the time, it is from that empathic standpoint, right? We're feeling into things, we're feeling into ourselves, and we're really wanting that personal human I care connection. And we're offering that too. Now, unless we get, put off and then we get all clammy and go into our shell, but that's just a part of the Cancer thing too. When we're feeling safe, it's like that open personal thing. And the opposite sign, Capricorn, so during Capricorn season, oftentimes can treat things more like business. Now, on the beautiful side, it brings objectivity. We're not quite as attached. We can see things from a bigger view. It helps bring some structure, or like, for example, there's actually some land to the water, so there's actually some formation instead of overflowing everywhere. But I bring this up because you may be extra sensitive to people or situations that feel dehumanizing, or that feel somehow not sensitive to your inner world and your inner feelings. If someone treats you like a transaction, I think, especially with the Mars energy here, you're gonna notice it more. And I'm not saying it means you should cut it loose or try to fix it, because that's up to you to decide, but to really pay attention, because it's probably not just that one situation or that one person. It is probably a pattern you've had for a long time with a bunch of people in situations that bring up the same stuff. And now it's coming to a head, if you will, with this, full moon in the first house, literally associated, with the head and the face, so you can't miss it. It's like, wow, that's really happening right now. I really don't like that. And then there's a chance to really engage that sort of Mars fierceness in a healthy way, because what else can Mars do? Cut shit cleanly when it needs to be cut. Yeah.
Love it. And I love this for us. I love this for us Cancers, because I do think that just in general, we are in an era right now where in this world, a lot of people don't give a fuck. They don't care about you. They don't care about other people. And there is a lot of systems, elements, very Saturn Capricorn, that reward not giving a fuck, that reward objectification. So part of the reason why I love this month so much for Cancers and our energy and what the lunations are bringing is because, well, we're like, fuck you too. In a way where it's like, you objectify, subjectify, do whatever you want to do. Well, we're not tolerating that shit anymore. There's a very low line for tolerance for Cancers in January. Don't fuck with us this month. Like, seriously. So this leads us to the new moon, which is at the very close of the month.
Yep. January 29th. And it will be on a Wednesday, which is a Mercury day, which we'll talk about why that matters. Well, we can talk about it right now because the new moon, of course, is a sun and moon conjunction, meaning they're together. And this is going to be in Aquarius, and it's also conjunct Pluto plus Mercury. So there is a little packed powerhouse in, we might argue, one of the deepest, most shadowy areas of the chart, right? Which by horoscope wise, we're looking at the 8th house. And so, Clarissa, you're calling this raw realities, which I love. It's like there is no fucking around here. It's like you get in and you confront what's there and you get to the truth. And this is what we're calling the shit, shit the shit button. If it needs to go, right, it needs to go.
Yeah, because that's what the 8th house does. The 8th house is I would say the most complicated house of all 12, in my humble opinion. The 8th house literally turns food into shit, right? It turns different things. It transforms the state and the nature of being and reality. So we've got Sun, Moon, Mercury, Pluto. That's like a big theme for this new moon. That is the most candid talk that you can imagine. It is frank. Yeah. It is direct. It is honest. So confrontation is kind of like another theme of, I think, January. But again, we have the energy, the fierceness. Let's say the crab ferocity. That is what we have access to this month. We don't have lunations. That's Moon, Saturn, or stuff like that where we kind of go into our shell. These lunations are like, boom. Okay, you want to talk candid? Hell yeah. Like, I'm ready for it.
And I love this because the one aspect that really stands out with this new moon on the January 29th is the trine between the sun and the moon, and also Pluto and Mercury and Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. And so we were talking about how Jupiter, and in this case that Jupiter falls in the 12th house horoscope wise. And so oftentimes Jupiter in the 12th house, we call it a guardian angel or buried treasure, right? Or something that's sort of showing up to help us. And so that is readily available with a trine, but you might not recognize it. This is the thing. You might miss the treasure. You might be waiting for it to connect in a certain way or look a certain way or someone to say a certain thing or something to show up at a certain time, and then you'll miss the thing that actually is the guardian angel. And so I think it's interesting because Jupiter in Gemini, especially retrograde, can be a tricky bitch, right? Like, what is going on here? Something's going on, behind over the corner, or someone's saying something and you're like, wait a second, are you sure that's what you said? Or you can feel something underneath the surface. And what's interesting is that Jupiter rules Mercury that's conjunct this new moon. And so we have, for me, like this Mercury, especially on a Wednesday, Mercury day, what is Mercury especially good at? Going between and the betwixt and the liminal spaces. Going to the underworld, then to the upper world, bridging things that we don't normally connect. So I think it's interesting, Clarissa, you mentioned earlier about transitioning lifestyles. You use that little kind of header for this month as well, and for these lunations. And I think that this particular new moon is helping us start to see where those new connections to that new lifestyle is. But again, there's something new about it. It's a new moon. So if you're looking for an old paradigm or an old structure or an old metaphorical boat to pick you up and take you there, you're probably missing the spaceship, that's out in the corner that really is ready to take you. And it's Aquarius, so, this is an Aquarius new moon, so I feel like the spaceship is not far off.
Please get me on the spaceship.
Yeah.
I'm so waiting for the spaceship. Yeah. And to your points, too, that guardian angel with Jupiter and Gemini situation, guiding and guarding despite ourselves. That's like the thing, too, with this Jupiter and Gemini situation. Because we as Cancers, once we commit, we commit. If we want something, we're gonna go for it.
Tenacity is a crab.
Tenaciousness, like crab, like all in.
Yes. All in and can't get me off energy.
Can't get me off. The pincers. That's what crabs in the ocean are just so bomb. They're just like, Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, and the water's moving, the waves are coming, and you're still pinched in.
Yeah. And so that's what we have naturally. That's one of our gifts as Cancers. And so Jupiter in Gemini is like, no, don't commit to that. And so it's the type of thing where it's like you could get so frustrated. Why isn't this happening for me? Why have I felt so stalled around pursuing this? Because there's something dangling that's better for you despite yourself. And this is really, really important for us as Cancers to, I think, embrace, particularly in January, because mid-year, when we get to June 6th Pacific time is when, it's either June 5th or 6th, but this is when Jupiter is ingressing into Cancer, which is huge.
Yeah, it's expanding us.
Literally, because that's what Jupiter does, is it expands us. And if you have a sun sign or whatever placement you have in Cancer, it goes boop. So it's kind of like, don't blow up the balloon yet. Like, you know.
Because you won't get to the destination it's trying to go to.
Thank you. And, right.
And this leads me to another note here that with Jupiter in Gemini, a mutable sign, it is the bridge or the transition or where we need to make an adjustment to get to Cancer, which is like a rebirth because it's a cardinal sign. You were bringing this up earlier. It was so beautiful. The idea of, cardinal signs and Cancer being one of them, of a rebirth, but we're not there yet. So again, if we're too quick to get in the new crab shell, for example, then either we're not going to fit in it, right? Or there's like something off about it. Like, it's funny, we normally think about needing a bigger shell, but I'm like, what if actually you need to trim down before you get in the new shell, right? There can be all kinds of this, back to the trickery we were talking about. But I think this is important, that what is the adjustment that you need to make with yourself, in your life, in your relationships, could be all of those, some of those, so that this next thing coming, this next rebirth that comes mid-year, you are really ready for it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, this is the thing. It doesn't mean not to initiate and do things, but there's some bigger cycle, something in there, and you'll know it. Trust your intuition, feel into your gut, really, your tummy, your Cancer tummy, to really feel into what is the thing that's almost ready but not yet. And then again, just like you wouldn't want a baby to be born 4 months prematurely because it wouldn't have the things it needs, we don't want to rebirth ourselves prematurely. So we still need some of that Jupiter Gemini retrograde. We still need some of those wirings and connections, which is one way I think about Gemini too, or some more information or another chapter to the story. Because if I didn't actually know where the last chapter ended and I moved on to the next step, that's like skipping an episode in your favorite series of shows, You're not going to be able to connect the dots. And you're the dot in this case, right? You are the most important dot to be connecting here.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's part of the push-pull, the stop-go, where, on one hand, it's like January, we're go-go Cancers. Yeah. Like, we have a lot of things to do. It's a Mars-Pluto phase for us. Mars-Pluto is back-breaking labor. It's project to project, right? Like, so that there's a lot of push for us. But also, to Tara's point, like, I really feel like a lot of January is just cleanup for us for this rebirth type of thing. Like, this is 1 month, because we are all Cancers. We're all rebirthing in June once Jupiter comes to our sign. So all the bullshit that we have put up with for particularly the last year, but literally for this like last 12-year cycle,
the Jupiter
with
cycle.
Jupiter, that's what we're dealing with. Like, we're dealing with the cleanup effort of 12 years of life. And that speaks very directly to me, like to personal relationships and professional relationships. And, it's like, damn, that shit started 12 years ago. And it's so not tenable moving forward in this next phase. And other things that are happening too for Cancers this year, I feel like January might be our last cleanup cycle where we're able to be very strategic and also very creative. So there's multiple reasons why I'm saying that. We've got a 15th harmonic thing going on, particularly with the new moon at the end of January. And we also have Mars, Saturn, and Mercury, Saturn in these harmonics for these moons, meaning like Mercury, Saturn is the analyst. It researches, it analyzes, it looks at raw data. Mars, Saturn does all the chores. It does all the dirty work that needs to be done. So really the purge button and the expunge. It's like, that is, I think, of all the things, one of the main focuses of the entire month for Cancer. Oh, you want to do, because we're gonna see people tripping. We're gonna see bad behavior this month a lot, and we're gonna kind of get confronted by a lot of things as Cancers. Thank God that good riddance, like, okay, well, fuck off. I have plenty of other things that I need to do versus being involved in all that bullshit. That's like the Cancer energy. That is like in January.
Man, I mean, Cancer is about home, right? So it's not just, so this could be about the space you live in. Maybe it's time to move. Maybe it's time to remodel. Maybe it's time to redecorate. Maybe it's time just to clean. I mean, my God, like maybe it's time to dust if you're like me and you don't do it very often. But it's also the home inside, right? Like it literally is like the vessel and how you take care of yourself physically and also emotionally. What we haven't brought up yet is that the nodes are changing signs.
Thank you.
So January 11th, actually we didn't talk about this either. So also, okay, two things. We can't, all these Cancer stuff. Every month, right, we have about 2.5 days of the moon being in Cancer, our signs. Like those are like our special moon days. So it will be Saturday, January 11th, at least Pacific time, 8:24 p.m. until Tuesday, January 14th, 1:11 a.m. Pacific time is when the moon will be in Cancer. So, you know, it's just kind of our own little energetic kind of happy cocoon is how I think about it, or we get our natural flow in that space. But on January 11th, the nodes will also move. The North Node's been in Aries, South Node in Libra, and they're going to move North Node to Pisces and South Node to Virgo. And so while the nodes have been in Aries and Libra, those signs have been squaring our sign Cancer. But now we're moving to a different situation where the North Node in Pisces is going to trine Cancer, our sign. So there is something about leaning into, the next about 18 months when the nodes are in these signs, that Cancer and Cancer energy and the whole domain of consciousness we call Cancer is part of our overall collective evolution and growth, right? There's a definite coming together of those energies. And I think that how well we individually are able to support and help and care and nurture that energy comes from what we're doing now, like in many ways. Because if we bring all that toxicity into North Node in Pisces, it's like dumping shit in the ocean, right? And so do you want to be part of an oil spill? Or do you want to be part of, either a cleanup crew or even better, tools or methods or ways of being and living energetically and physically that don't create so much toxicity in the first place. And I think this is a huge piece of it here.
5 billion%. And that's, that the nodal shift to the Pisces Virgo axis in the natal chart, that the natural rulership for that is 3rd and 9th house. Finding and expressing our voice. Yeah. Like that is a major thing that kicks off in January. This is such a trip how astrology works, because it's with the nodal shift alone, that is a theme, but that is also a theme primarily with the mid-month full moon. And it's going to be an ongoing theme for this 18-month period, that when the eclipses really get going. I think we had one eclipse last year that was, I believe, in Pisces. So it's okay.
We've activated it, but we're not full in.
We're not full in. Like we're full in January 11th. That's the first step of full in, because now we have the lunar nodes in the Pisces Virgo axis, and then it just amplifies and amplifies once we have the eclipses, which are very, very important for Cancers. At this point with the eclipses, I have learned over the years, I don't schedule a lot of things if I can't, if I can bear that, because eclipses jack me up. I am a Cancer. I don't care what eclipse, I don't care what house it's in, what sign, whatever. It's just so much energy. Eclipses are 300% of energy. It's 300% more energy than a normal new and full moon. So just yes, that could be astrological tech nerd, which I actually love, so I apologize. Yeah. No. But at the same time, I think it's also just so representative of the shifts we are preparing for. We're about to go 300%. Yeah. So clean out the clogs in January, because once we get to March, boom. Once we get to June with Jupiter ingress Cancer, boom, boom. Yeah. So this is, again, the last opportunity to clean those pipes out, to not bring the shit to the ocean.
But I think your point is not just geeking out. This is an important reminder for all of us who are Cancers with strong Cancer energy, that the sensitivity, emotionally, energetically, and even physically, I'm going to say, is oftentimes we don't acknowledge it enough. We don't honor it enough. You and I both have thyroid issues. We have both of us have hormone issues, right? We both are. I am very sensitive to things. So I may take a prescription or something and I have these weird reactions to it. The doctor can't figure it out. It's not quote unquote normal. So I think during this time, really recognizing that what might be quote unquote normal, that the thicker sort of skinned, right, or maybe the less sensitive people, not making one better or worse, just simply saying they may never notice it. You got to know that for you, if you're watching this and you're a Cancer, you're going to have some of those. So check out where the disturbances are. It could be just you need to turn your Wi-Fi off on your phone when you go to bed. I mean, these are this doesn't have to be, you may not see it as the thing. You may be living next to something that's continually feeding an energy that you're picking up on, that's causing you to feel a certain way or be a certain way. So I'm saying, so this sort of, this gets back to that, some of that guardian angel energy of not really knowing what it is or where to find it. Maybe being open or saying your prayers or being, pulling some cards or doing something around, hey, where are their disruptions or things around my energy that I'm not aware of that I can shore up. Yeah. Because those little things, they will take you down.
Thank you so much for sharing that and saying that, Tara, because I think that is what the lunations provide us, and a lot of the astrology in January provides us Cancers. No tolerance for disruption. We're getting to a point, in January, we don't have tolerance for these little naggy things that have been slowly destroying and corrupting our world in a parasitic way for I don't know how long. And, getting under the shell or however you want to put it, where you just put up with it, right? Because Cancers are really good at that. We have that kind of tenacity, like we were talking about. We can't just put up with a whole bunch of bullshit. January, the planets and stars are aligning to ordain us Cancers with the ability to not put up with that bullshit.
And if there is shit in the shell, I'm saying I'm not gonna say this for certain, but I think that the window for getting it out is January. I feel like to some extent, if you let that stuff stay in, those disruptions stay in the shell, I think it'll be harder to get them out. You may have to carry them along longer. So I personally would like to have them out. For example, I don't want to walk around with 10 rocks in my shoe if I can take it out. So if I know there's a certain period of time where, hey, I can ditch that and move on in a more smooth way, even if it's uncomfortable in the moment, I'm saying it's worth it. And sometimes for Cancer, we're so attached to wanting to be comfortable, right? It's a moon ruled sign. We don't want discomfort. But I'm going to say, what's better or what's worse? A little bit of discomfort right now to lead to a lot better comfort for a long period of time? Or do you want to suffer for a long period of time for a tiny bit of comfort now?
Right.
So this speaks to the taking action on your own behalf. This speaks to shitting the shit, all these pieces.
Let it go,
Yes. Embrace your crabby self too. I mean that in the happiest way. Embrace your crabby senses, all that intuition, the stuff that sometimes people are like, why are you so sensitive? drop in and feel. What is that sensitivity about? Sometimes then you could acknowledge, well, I was taking it personally. Sometimes it's literally those crazy antennae giving you the information that's going to save your ass or save someone else's ass. So don't be so quick to dismiss those little things. Disruptions, I think, are part of the game in January.
Oh, for 1,000,000%. Yeah. So when those antennas, when that stuff goes off for us, it's wonderful. Because I think we're going to have like this natural purging. But I also think that automatically Cancerians, this month we're going to respond with bad bitch energy.
Woo, I love bad
like,
bitch.
It's like, oh, yeah.
I'm into it. I really am. I'm into it. I don't know. I mean, as I get older, it's like, it's not that I'm less caring. It's just, I've realized that what I thought was kindness and caring it isn't even real kindness and caring. Because Cancer is caring, but caring is not just defaulting and making nice and avoiding conflict, right? That's false caring. So what does it really look like to care? And there is a fierceness to really caring, because sometimes in truly caring, we have to make hard decisions and say difficult things. Like really caring about someone is not just making nice when you know you need to say something they need to hear.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to have plenty of those conversations in January.
Plenty of time to practice. Yeah.